Heartwarming discovery, shy intern's life-changing moment revealed at VIP table with the CEO. Claire felt like a tiny star lost in the vast galaxy of the marketing firm's VIP gala. The glittering Chicago skyline twinkled outside, but inside the grand hall, her heartbeat echoed loud enough for everyone to hear. At just 23, she was an intern in a place buzzing with ambitious sharks. The way her colleagues networked, their voices rich with confidence, made her stomach twist. Shy and unsure, she found herself clutching her glass, wishing to blend into the folds of her simple dress. As the night wore on, she stole glances at George, the intimidating CEO. His stern brow and sharp suit spelled power. Claire had heard the murmurs, he was known for his no-nonsense approach. Yet, for all his success, she recognized a flicker of loneliness in his eyes, deep like the abyss, hidden beneath layers of corporate facade. Just then, the music faltered, and a conversation erupted about a struggling local business. The laughter faded, and Claire's heart quickened. She felt the weight of her father's stories pressing against her chest, the tales of courage, the echoes of resilience from a man who had defended his country. He had always taught her to care for her community, to uplift others like they had once lifted him. "Excuse me," she found herself whispering, surprising even herself. As every pair of eyes turned to her, Claire's unease shimmered like silver. I think we need to consider the community. People there are fighting to hold on. If we bring life back to that business, we give hope to those families, just like my dad once had." Silence wrapped around them, thick and taut. George leaned forward, absorbing her words like a sponge. For a moment, Claire dared to meet his gaze, feeling as if she were seen, truly seen. The air shifted, crackling with something profound. A subtle nod from George signaled her to continue, and she spoke with newfound strength. But just as empowerment surged within her, the conversation shifted back to corporate strategies, drowning out her voice. "Claire, great point," one colleague interjected, but the flicker of excitement she felt dimmed when the attention turned to numbers and profits. Her heart sank. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Claire, still alight with what had just transpired, found herself at the edge of the table once more, retreating into the background where she felt safest. But she couldn't shake off the look in George's eyes. An unspoken question lingered there. Did he see her? Did he understand her? As the gala continued around them, laughter and chatter weaving through the hall, Claire sensed both her dream and her fear collide. Would this spark of connection lead to change? Or would the moment slip through her fingers like grains of sand? Uncertainty buzzed in the air, igniting hope that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something incredible for both of them. Claire stood by the table, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. She could hardly breathe as her heart raced, a mix of exhilaration and dread flooding her senses. Why did she open her mouth? Why did she say those words? They weren't just thoughts thrown into the air, they were pieces of her heart laid bare, inviting a response that might never come. Across the table, George was still watching her. The laughter around them faded into a background hum, and time seemed to stretch as he leaned back slightly, considering her. His expression softened, and for the first time, Claire saw more than the stoic CEO. The fortress of his expression began to crack, exposing a hint of curiosity. "Interesting idea, Claire," he finally said, his voice low but steady, drawing the attention of their colleagues back once more. "Community engagement is not just our responsibility, it sounds like an opportunity." His words, though brief, felt weighty, they wrapped around her like a warm blanket on a cold winter night. But just as quickly, others chimed in, eager to shift the conversation. Claire felt herself receding into the background again, but this time with a glimmer of hope. George had acknowledged her. Maybe he truly understood. Maybe all those years of feeling invisible were about to shatter. Hours passed, but Claire felt like she was living in a dream. She recognized the confines of her insecurity tightening like a vice around her, but faint sparks of bravery ignited the dormant parts of her spirit. With each clink of glasses, with every cheer and toast made by ambitious colleagues, she envisioned a world where her voice mattered. Later, as she made her way to the restroom, Claire caught a reflection of herself in the polished mirror. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes still wide with the thrill of that moment with George. "What do you have to lose?" she whispered to herself, clutching her glass a little tighter. The reflection of her confidence glimmered back at her, only to be interrupted by a noise behind her. "Claire!" A familiar voice called out. It was Mia, her mentor and someone who had always seen Claire's potential. "I was looking for you. George wants to talk. He specifically asked for you." Her stomach dropped. Talk? With George? The commanding CEO? Would this be another chance to speak her mind, or would the weight of his authority crush her words again? She glanced nervously at Mia, who smiled encouragingly. "He saw something in you tonight. Don't second-guess yourself." Claire nodded, her heart pounding once more. This could be her moment. She had weathered so many storms of self-doubt, could she actually ride this wave? As she walked towards George, her legs felt heavy, yet every step drew her closer to what could be a defining moment. George stood by the balcony, the city lights dancing around him. He turned, his intense gaze meeting hers. "Claire, I wanted to discuss your idea further," he said, and Claire's heart soared. The world around her fell away, the noise, the crowd, the chaos. It was just the two of them. But the moment felt fragile, as if it could shatter at any second. What would she say? Would her voice hold its own weight? The stakes were high. And just before she could respond, George leaned closer, a glint of curiosity in his eyes. "Are you ready to take a chance?" Claire inhaled deeply, the question echoing in her mind. What lay ahead could change everything. But was she ready for everything that came with it? As anticipation electrified the air, she'd have to find out soon. Claire's breath caught in her throat as the words hung between them. They felt like a challenge, stirring something deep inside her. Could she really take a chance? Her heart raced at the thought of stepping into uncharted territory, where both triumph and failure awaited. "Absolutely," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "There is so much potential in engaging our community. It's about more than just profits, it's personal." She could hear her pulse pounding in her ears, each beat a reminder of how long she'd waited for this moment. George's brow arched slightly, his lips curling into a half-smile. "I can see you've thought this through. But, let us dive deeper. What changes would you propose?" The question took her aback. She had expected him to question her ideas or push them aside. Instead, he wanted to engage. This was not merely a passing conversation, George had opened the door to something profound. Claire steadied herself, threading her hands together to quell the tremor. "First, we need to listen to our community and understand their needs. Then we can build programs that resonate with them, not just surface-level promotions." She felt the words flowing out now, eagerly connected to the ideals that had long swirled in her mind. George nodded, his eyes never leaving hers, absorbing every word. "Sounds promising. But how do we get the team on board? Change can be daunting." As Claire considered her answer, she felt a flicker of inspiration. "Share the stories. People are motivated by real experiences. Highlight how our initiative could positively impact the community and boost morale internally. When passion infects the company culture, it ignites growth." She could see the wheels turning in George's mind, and it filled her with a mix of hope and trepidation. This wasn't just a discussion, this was a test of leadership, one she was desperately hoping to pass. "Very insightful," he replied, his gaze intense and thoughtful. But can you present this to the board? They will want firm numbers, strategies. The pressure mounted again. I can, she breathed, though doubt lurked at the corners of her mind. If I have the support. Count on it. His words held a promise that felt tangible. You have my backing, Claire. This could be your chance to showcase your skills. Only if you're ready, of course. The excitement surged within her, battling against the familiar waves of doubt. Would she really be leading a presentation to the board? This was the opportunity she had dreamed about, but with it came the weight of expectations. Suddenly, Mia's voice echoed in her thoughts, don't second-guess yourself. I'm ready, Claire said, determination rising like a balloon filled with air. I want to do this. Then let us set something up for next week, he responded, a glint of approval in his expression. As they spoke, the party around them faded back into a distant murmur. This was her moment. Claire felt the adrenaline pumping through her veins like electricity, buzzing with possibilities. But when they turned to rejoin the crowd, worry crept back in. What if she failed? What if they dismissed her ideas? The board's skepticism loomed as a shadow in her mind. George caught her glance, reading her thoughts. Remember, Claire, every great leader started somewhere. You are far more capable than you think. His words lingered in the air, a soft reassurance wrapped in encouragement that fueled her courage. As they stepped back into the lively atmosphere, Claire was acutely aware that she stood at the precipice of change, both for her career and herself. But was she really ready to embrace this new world, filled with uncertainty and risk? As they walked towards the crowd, Claire felt a surge of resolve. She wouldn't let fear hold her back any longer. In that moment, she knew she had to seize not just the opportunity but also the call within her. But what if the journey ahead tested her in ways she couldn't predict? A week flew by like a whirlwind. Claire was consumed with preparations, tearing through notes, crafting presentations, rehearsing her pitch in front of the bathroom mirror. Every time she glanced at her reflection, she saw the anxiety etched across her face, a harsh reminder of the stakes. The day of the presentation arrived, and as Claire walked into the boardroom, her heart pounded like a drum. The walls felt like they were closing in, decorated with corporate artwork that suddenly seemed surreal. The faces staring back at her were a mix of curious and skeptical, a meeting of minds poised for debate. She took a deep breath and straightened her back, reminding herself of George's words, believe in yourself. George sat at the far end of the long table, a reassuring smile on his face. It steadied her heartbeat just a little. With every step closer, her nerves shimmered in the air, palpable and electric. She could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down like a heavy cloak. Good afternoon, everyone, Claire began, her voice trembling slightly but firm enough to command attention. Thank you for giving me the chance to share my vision. She started with the stories. Each narrative she shared painted a vibrant picture of the community's needs, the local schools struggling, families facing hardships, and small businesses yearning for support. As she spoke, she watched a subtle shift in the room. Eyes locked onto her, breaths held in anticipation, she was no longer just a nervous intern but a storyteller unveiling a critical reality. When Claire transitioned into her proposed initiatives, she infused passion into her presentation, pointing out how each strategy resonated with potential growth and connection. She emphasized engagement, collaboration, and genuine investment both in the company's profits and in the community's well-being. As her ideas flowed, Claire caught George's approving nods out of the corner of her eye. The support buoyed her spirits, urging her to keep going. But when she reached the end, Claire faced the board's questions. What if the community doesn't respond as you anticipate? One member challenged, crossing their arms with skepticism. In that moment, doubt flickered through her mind like a candle threatened by a sudden gust of wind. But Claire took a deep breath, recalling the stories she shared, each of them real and raw. Every connection takes time, she replied, her voice steady. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's built on trust, consistency, and transparency. We can't predict every outcome. But what we can do is invest in those relationships, and the results will follow. The room fell silent, the tension almost tangible. Then, an unexpected smile broke across George's face as he added, "What Claire is reminding us is that this could lead to a drastic shift in our company culture. Growth isn't just numbers, it's about the connections we foster." Just as hope began to flourish, an older board member chimed in with a scowl. "But are you prepared to take responsibility if things go awry?" Her heart sank momentarily. That was indeed a formidable fear. The pressure of leadership didn't just shape outcomes, it molded reputations. Claire felt the familiar weight of doubt return, but amidst that uncertainty, she saw an opportunity. "Yes, I am. Leadership isn't about avoiding failure. It's about navigating through it. If we never take that leap of faith, then we risk never knowing what's possible." Claire's conviction echoed in the room, saturating the air with an undeniable energy. It was a moment of truth. As she stood before them, she felt a profound realization washing over her: she was ready to own this. Not just for the board, or George, but for herself. But when the deliberation began, she couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was about to unfold. What if their decision didn't depend just on her presentation but on something deeper, something that could change everything? The deliberation felt like an eternity. Claire stood in silence, her body tense as the board members whispered among themselves. Each murmur was a subtle spike of anxiety that brought her pulse racing. Her mind raced to all the possibilities. Doubt and hope tangled like vines in her heart. George leaned forward, his brow furrowing as he whispered to the member next to him. Could he see her struggle? The thought of any disappointment finding its way back to him caused her insides to twist. Just moments ago, she had felt empowered, but now that accomplishment threatened to slip from her fingers. Then it began. A member raised his hand, an indication they were ready to voice their thoughts. "Claire," he started, his tone softer than she expected. "Your presentation was inspiring, and I appreciate your perspective on community engagement. Yet, I still have reservations about the financial implications." Claire nodded, her heart pounding in her ears. "Absolutely, I understand. It's a valid concern. But investing in our community can yield returns that go beyond numbers. It's about loyalty, trust, and reputation." Another member chimed in, "However, we are in a precarious situation financially. Can we afford to take this risk now?" Their skepticism stung more than she anticipated. Feelings of inadequacy rose in her chest, threatening to shut her down. But she fought back, reminding herself they were just questions, not a reflection of her worth. Claire took a step forward and locked eyes with them. "I believe in action over mere hesitation. What if we start small? Pilot programs, manageable investments that allow us to test the waters." She saw nods of intrigue appearing amid the sea of doubt. The tension shifted. Their expressions softened, as if they were beginning to consider the potential rather than the risks. But then the older board member, who had initially questioned her, cut through the hopeful atmosphere. "You speak of actions and trust, but what about the vision? What about the impact we're seeking to make?" Claire swallowed hard. His words were like daggers, yet they carved a path for clarity. She took a moment, looking around at the faces willing to listen. "You're right, this is more than numbers. It's about weaving our company into the fabric of the community. We want people to see us as a part of their lives, not just a business. That connection is priceless." The response was slow but palpable, an undeniable shift taking place. A few board members exchanged knowing glances, and George's smile widened as they leaned closer, intrigued again. But the fraying threads of concern mingled with moments of hope, as one final question swung in her direction, hard and direct. "What if this is a failure, Claire? What then?" She paused, letting the silence stretch between them. This was at the crossroads. Failure can be a teacher, and I intend to learn every lesson it offers. The room held its breath. Finally, the chairperson leaned back, locking eyes with Claire. Let's table this discussion for now. We need to reflect. Your enthusiasm is undeniable, but we must weigh our options carefully. The sense of finality hung in the air. Claire nodded, trying to mask her disappointment. For every inch gained, she felt a mile lost. As they wrapped up the meeting, Claire gathered her materials, a sense of unease settling in her chest. George stepped toward her, eyes filled with understanding. "You did well, Claire," he said, reassuring her with his steady presence. But even as she nodded, a thought gnawed at her. Could she truly live up to the daring vision she presented? Walking out of the boardroom, Claire felt a mixture of acceptance and anxiety, a tightrope act of determination. She needed to find clarity, not just in her professional life, but in her heart. What if there was someone out there who knew the risks she was willing to take? In that moment of uncertainty, she recalled the community's stories she had shared. Maybe they held the key to her next step. Claire resolved to dig deeper, connect further, and uncover the truths that might guide her. Or, perhaps, even inspire the board. The fire within grew as she headed toward her next destination, the local community center. She could sense a new chapter was waiting just around the corner. But first, what if she discovered something truly unexpected about herself? Claire stepped into the community center, the vibrant walls splashed with color, the pulse of life in the neighborhood. Children ran by, laughter echoing through the hallways, and her heart swelled with a mixture of inspiration and nervousness. This was where her vision lived, where faces told tales of resilience and hope, but it felt like such a vast world compared to the staid boardroom she had just left. She approached the front desk, where a kind-faced woman was deep in conversation with a group of teenagers. "Excuse me," Claire interrupted gently, trying to keep her enthusiasm in check. "I'm here to learn more about the community programs." The woman turned, her warm smile lighting up her features. "Of course. I'm Ava. We run several projects here that help connect the community with local resources. What are you most interested in?" Claire hesitated. Was she truly open to hearing the stories that might challenge her even further? I want to understand what makes this community tick, and how we can support each other better." Ava's brow arched with curiosity. "You might want to join our next meeting with the community leaders. They have some powerful ideas about how to bridge gaps between businesses and residents." "Absolutely, I'd love that." Claire felt a spark as she pictured herself sharing ideas, but then doubt creeped back in. Is that what they wanted from her? Would they see her as the outsider? Just then, a small voice piped up from behind Ava. "Are you part of the company that gave us the playground?" A girl with curly hair, eyes brightened with anticipation, stepped out from the shadows of the desk. "Yes, we are." Claire knelt down so she could meet the girl at eye level. "Did you like it?" "It's amazing," the girl exclaimed animatedly. "We can play all the time. But we need more swings. Can you bring more swings?" Claire felt a rush of warmth. "I'll make sure to talk to them about it. Your voice matters. Thank you for telling me." Ava watched curiously as Claire stood up, a little more alive, a little braver. "You have a gift with the kids," she remarked, "but don't forget to listen, too. They often carry the weight of our dreams on their shoulders." Claire nodded, absorbing Ava's wisdom. It wasn't just about big ideas and investments, it was about each individual, their stories, and their aspirations. As the conversation drifted into plans and possibilities, Claire found herself contemplating her own journey. Did she really know what it meant to be part of this community? What if she gave herself the chance to dive in deeper? Later, after parting ways with Ava, Claire found a quiet corner of the center. She took out her notebook, ready to jot down thoughts, but instead, her hand shook above the blank page. What if she approached this the wrong way? A sinking doubt came over her. Was she meant to be the one to make the change? But then she remembered the girl's enthusiasm and the weight of those hopeful eyes. It dawned on her that change was never about being perfect or having all the answers. It was about being present, being willing. taking a chance on people and ideas, even when the outcome was uncertain. The spark she felt earlier ignited into a flame. What if she gathered stories from this community, from the voices that often went unheard? What if sharing their experiences could provide a roadmap to present to the board showing that their investment isn't just numbers but lives? Just then, the sound of laughter pulled her from her thoughts. She turned toward the room showcasing a group of kids painting murals on the walls, their canvases bursting with color and emotion. A remarkable realization washed over her. Maybe her unexpected discovery wasn't just about the community or the board, maybe it was about herself and her capacity to connect. As the day went on, Claire vowed to weave those stories into her vision, but a question lingered: how would she present them? Would the board be ready for stories that challenged their views? She left the community center, invigorated yet anxious, knowing she had opened a door. But where would it lead? And would she be brave enough to see it through? As the sun began to set, the golden light spilled over the buildings, casting long shadows on the pavement. Claire walked back to her car, her heart still dancing from the day's encounters. Each step felt lighter, but an aching anxiety still churned within her. What if this was just a fleeting moment? What if the courage to tackle the challenge ahead vanished before she could grasp it? She settled into her car and sat quietly for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel. Images of the mural, the laughter, the girl's request for more swings swirled in her mind. Light hummed around her, and she could almost hear the whispers of stories waiting to be told. With a sudden determination, she pulled out her phone and began scrolling through her notes. A meeting with community leaders was coming up soon, and she needed to prepare. Her fingers danced over the screen, jotting down ideas, points her mind had been spiraling around since her time at the center. She wanted to gather stories, maybe even create a short video featuring the children and their dreams. This could be something tangible they could show the board, something that turned figures into real faces and hopes. Yet as excitement washed over her, doubt crept in again. Would they listen? Standing in a room filled with seasoned executives and shareholders, would she be able to present these heartfelt narratives in a way that resonated? They were used to hard data, not stories. She took a deep breath, parking those worries in a corner of her mind for now. That night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Claire mulled over the potential impact of each story she could uncover. Would they reveal struggles? Moments of joy? Stories that could help bridge the gap between the community and the company? A sense of urgency settled in her stomach. With each thought, her pulse quickened. The following days flew by in a blur. She immersed herself in community events, from soccer games to cooking classes. Each outing uncovered more than she could have imagined. She heard laughter mingled with tales of hardship and resilience. There was Amira, who had come from a refugee camp and now taught local kids how to cook traditional dishes. Then there was Jamal, whose father ran a small corner store, sharing dreams of expanding their family legacy. Each encounter gave her more fuel. With each story, Claire felt the weight of her mission grow heavier yet more meaningful. She stopped feeling like an outsider and started connecting with everyone she met. A camaraderie rooted in a shared hope solidified around her. And with this union, Claire began to believe that she was capable of sparking real change. Finally, the day arrived for the meeting with community leaders. As she prepared her notes, Claire's heart raced, anxiety clawing at her throat. But as she looked at the stack of stories she had gathered, she found focus. This wasn't just about her anymore, this was about them. Standing in front of the mirror, she straightened her blazer and took a deep breath. "You've got this," she whispered to her reflection, feeling the warmth spread from her core. She was ready to fight for the voices that had become so dear to her. Arriving at the community center, she felt a buzz in the air. People wandered in, the room filling with vibrant energy. Claire spotted Ava standing near the entrance. "You ready?" she asked, all-knowing smiles. More than ever, Claire replied, her voice steady. But just as her confidence surged, her heart dropped. Across the room, she saw a familiar face: Troy, the CEO. His presence loomed large, and suddenly, the stakes felt much higher. What felt like a casual gathering now appeared to be a pivotal moment in her journey. Would she be able to share these stories, make him understand their significance? Would he see the potential in this community the way she had? As the meeting began and voices mingled in a whirlwind of energy, Claire realized she stood at a crossroads. Would she remain silent, or would she find her voice among the tide of expectations? The moment to speak up was nearing, but the weight of the world felt heavier than ever. Now was the time for courage, and Claire knew she had to seize it. But just as she prepared to stand, a new voice echoed across the room, one that promised to shift everything she believed. The room fell silent as the new voice rang out, cutting through the chatter like a clap of thunder. Claire turned, her heart racing. It was a young intern, Jacob, barely out of college, standing nervously by the podium. He had always been a wallflower, quick to shy away from the limelight. But here he was, stepping into it, his hands trembling as he adjusted his glasses. Excuse me," he stammered, looking around the room, his eyes darting from one familiar face to another. "I have something to say." Claire felt a rush of empathy for him, remembering her own uncertainty moments before. Troy shifted in his seat, intrigued but doubtful. The crowd hushed further, curiosity piqued. With a deep breath, Jacob continued, gaining momentum as he spoke. "I'm just an intern, but I've seen how hard everyone here works, how passionate you all are about this community. I wanted to share something important." He paused, gathering his thoughts, and Claire could see the battle within him. He glanced at her, and she nodded, encouraging him to keep going. He looked down at the notes he had hastily jotted on a crumpled paper. "I've been volunteering at the center on weekends. The stories I've heard there, they've changed my perspective, made me realize how much I took for granted." The softness of his words wrapped around the room like a warm embrace. He talked about the children's dreams, about Amira and Jamal, how they inspired him. With each story, Claire felt her heart swell with pride and hope. She could see Troy's brows furrowing, his interest growing. "I used to think success was about numbers, about profits," Jacob continued, "but it's not. It's about what we can do for each other." There was a ripple of murmurs. Leaders and executives leaned in, expressions softening. "What if we took these stories and really listened?" he asked, his voice wavering but resolve shining through. "What if we used them to shape our initiatives?" Claire felt the energy in the room shift. Conversations that had been dry and calculating now buzzed with possibility. Troy's expression softened, and Claire could see a glimmer of understanding flicker in his eyes. As Jacob stepped back, they all turned toward Claire. It was her turn. She felt the weight of the room's expectations, eyes filled with curiosity, hope, and a hint of doubt. Encouraged by Jacob's bravery, Claire drew in a shaking breath, swallowing her fear. "Jacob's right," she began, crossing the space between them. "These stories matter. They reveal the heart of this community. They are the spark that can ignite change." She unfolded her notes, but she didn't read from them. Instead, she spoke from her heart. She spoke of the children, their laughter, their dreams brimming with innocence yet pulsing with potential. She could see Troy now, nodding ever so slightly as she recounted her experiences. Each story she wove linked back to the projects, the visions they shared. The room was silent as they absorbed her words, and Claire felt herself in a flow, a river of ideas coursing through her. As she reached the end of her speech, the applause erupted, filling the room with warmth and urgency. There was disbelief and clear surprise on many faces, but even more importantly, a sense of connection. But just as she hoped to bask in their appreciation, something unexpected happened. Troy stood, his face a mask of contemplation. He looked around the room, then back at Claire, and began speaking. "I've never fully understood the value of stories until today," he said slowly. "We need to reconsider how we approach this investment, but there is something deeper we must address first." Claire's heart skipped a beat. What could this mean? What potential decisions were waiting to be unveiled? As Troy prepared to delve deeper into his thoughts, Claire held her breath. What would the future hold? Would they transform their approach, pushing boundaries for the good of the community? A sense of unease tinged with hope simmered within her. And just as the room leaned in closer, waiting for Troy's revelation, Claire noticed the intern Jacob. Whispering something to Ava, an urgency illuminating his eyes. What could he have to say? Jacob's voice caught in his throat, the urgency in his whispers almost palpable. Ava's wide eyes mirrored his concern. Whatever he had to say, it was important, and Claire felt the tension ripple through the room. The applause that had moments ago echoed against the walls faded into an anxious silence. "Excuse me," Jacob finally spoke, his voice barely rising above a whisper, but it carried a weight that demanded attention. "I need to share something personal." Troy's posture shifted as he turned to Jacob, curiosity and caution mingling in his gaze. Other executives leaned in, eager to catch every word. Claire felt a knot tightening in her stomach. The moment felt fragile, as if anything could shatter the delicate anticipation in the air. "Back when I was volunteering," Jacob resumed, his confidence growing with each passing second, "I met a girl named Layla. She's 10 years old, but she's been through so much. She lost her mother last year." Claire's heart sank. She could only imagine the kind of pain a child that young must carry. Troy's expression softened further, reflective and vulnerable. "She told me how she dreams of becoming a doctor," Jacob continued, his voice steadier now. "But when she looks in the mirror, she doesn't see someone who can make that happen. She sees someone who's lost." As he spoke, Claire felt a warmth rise in her chest. She thought of all the children they worked with, each carrying their own struggles and successes. Jacob's voice trembled slightly as he described the moment he realized how powerful hope can be. "I told her that dreams are like seeds. They need nurturing, and I know that together, we could help her grow. I thought, what if we could help every child like Layla believe in their potential?" His eyes sparkled now, a fierce passion igniting his words. What if this wasn't just about numbers or strategies, but about real lives? The room began to buzz again, but this time with hope and determination. Troy's brow furrowed in thought, the wheels clearly turning in his mind. Claire felt the atmosphere change. There was a sense of urgency to act, to make each story matter even more than before. Troy finally broke the silence that hung heavy between them. "Jacob, you're right. We've been too focused on our protocols. This is about people. We need to have open dialogues about why we do what we do. It's time to shift our approach." Stories like Layla. As he took a breath, the weight of realization settling into his words, they are the backbone of this initiative. Claire couldn't help but smile as a wave of relief washed over her. The tension in the room transformed quickly into a collaborative energy. They weren't just there to discuss numbers, they were there to make choices and create an impact. But as hope filled the air, Jacob's urgency didn't fade. He leaned toward Ava again, whispering fiercely, "There's something else, something that could change everything for Layla." Claire's stomach dropped. What could be so significant that it left Jacob on the brink of revelation? The room felt charged, each turn of the conversation leading closer to the unknown. As Jacob's eyes darted around the group, Claire realized that they were on the edge of something monumental. But what could it be? The realization that there was something more lingered like a promise, and Claire's heart raced. What new doors could they potentially open for Layla and so many others? The possibilities hung thick in the room, waiting to be uncovered. Jacob took a deep breath, the gravity of his words hanging heavily in the air. "Layla has a knack for science. She told me how she wants to create things to help people. But her school hasn't had any funds for science programs," he continued. "What if we helped fund a program specifically designed to nurture kids like her?" The room erupted into murmurs, the idea taking root like a seed watered with fresh insight. Claire felt her heart soar, the potential wrapped around her like a warm embrace. Troy's expression shifted from introspection to determination. And we can involve local businesses too, he added, a spark igniting in his voice. It's not just about handing out checks. We can provide mentorship, host workshops. This is tangible right here, right now. Claire exchanged glances with Ava and Jacob. They nodded, the same fire igniting in their eyes. This was more than a mere proposal, it was a movement, a way to bridge the chasm between the community and corporate worlds. I love this idea, Claire chimed in, her voice steadier, no longer faltering under the weight of doubt. What if we held a community event? A science fair where kids can showcase their talents. Parents could volunteer to mentor them, while local businesses can offer support. As Claire spoke, she could see nods of agreement from various members of the board. The stories they had shared of resilience, of hope were not just tales but living proof of change waiting to happen. The room's energy shifted again, the collective understanding blooming like flowers in spring. Troy's enthusiasm was infectious as he brought the executives' minds together, incorporating their insights, forging a path to tangible change. I think it's time we stop talking and start doing, he said, smiling at Claire and Jacob. Let's create a committee focused on community engagement that can oversee these initiatives. Cheers erupted, excitement bubbling over like a newly opened soda can. Claire, overwhelmed with a sense of belonging and purpose, couldn't contain her joy. This was her moment, one that bridged her dreams with reality, connecting her arduous struggles with genuine impact. Jacob stood tall, his confidence spiraling into the room like a warm breeze. And not just for Layla, for every child who feels unheard. Let this be our legacy. As the meeting wrapped up, Claire felt the world shift beneath her. They were no longer just a corporate entity chasing profits, they had transformed into something meaningful, a community, a family rooted in care and advancement. She could almost see Layla in that science fair, her eyes sparkling with excitement, possibly with the spirit of a budding doctor ready to change the world. That evening, Claire stepped outside the community center, her heart full and radiant with possibility. The city skyline stood violet against the dusky sky, and a sense of hope washed over her, driving away the remnants of past insecurities. Thank you, universe. She whispered, smiling to herself, feeling that transformation the moment sliced deftly across her life's canvas. As she reflected on the incredible metamorphosis of that day with George, Jacob, and the board, she realized she had found her voice, her purpose. She wasn't just an intern anymore. She was a catalyst, a spark for change, with a heart open to connect those around her. With a newfound determination, Claire decided to pen a letter to Layla, inviting her to be a part of this budding journey. What better way to inspire than to encourage the very voices that ignited the movement? But it was more than just that. This connection, this fellowship had shown her what was truly possible when one stepped into the light, facing uncertainty head-on. It proved the doubters wrong. As she made her way home, an undeniable warmth enveloped her, wrapping her in joy. A sense of urgency surged within, the push to make a difference, to share stories of triumph over struggles, felt like a hands-on mission she had to champion. This transformation wasn't just her own. It was communal, a testament to the power of connection, empathy, and bravery. And in that moment, she realized something even deeper. Life wasn't about living in the shadows, but about stepping boldly into the limelight to inspire others. Now, more than ever, it felt like the moment to act, to share her journey, and to touch others' lives. Before the night closed in, Claire pulled out her phone and hit record, voice trembling with excitement and her heart full, ready to share the story of a community brought to life, full of hopes and dreams waiting to blossom. Hi everyone. She said, embracing the joy spilling from her heart. This is the moment to share our message of hope. Let's make it happen together. As she captured the moment for herself and others, she couldn't help but think, who wouldn't want to be part of this journey? If you feel inspired by Claire's journey, be part of the change. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that can change lives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let them know you care. Comment your reactions and feelings about this amazing ending. You could inspire someone else. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of uplifting our communities together.